Have you ever thought about how when people make things, there's usually a plan for whatever they make? For example, when Johannes Gutenberg made his version of the printing press, the plan was to make books accessible and affordable to all people, not just the rich. So go count the number of books in your house. I'd say that plan was pretty successful. Or how about when the Wright brothers made the airplane? The plan was for people to be able to travel by air. Turns out it was a great and much faster plan. Now you could say that the printing press and the airplane are both works of art. Their makers put a lot of imagination, detail, and care into making these things. What an amazing day that must have been for Gutenberg to see those very first pages printed, or the Wright brothers to actually fly in the air. But what if they had made those things and they were never used? What if the printing press never printed anything, or the airplane was just parked in a barn somewhere never to fly? Our lives would look very different today. But thankfully it wasn't enough just to make those things. Their makers knew there was a plan and purpose for each of them. Now we see other works of art every day that also have a maker and a plan. We pass them on the street, at work, and every Sunday they play around our feet. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yes, people! People are God's works of art. He is our maker and He has a plan for each of us. Every neighbor, every preschooler, every parent, God has a plan for all of us because He made us and He loves us. Now we want to teach our preschoolers this month that God has a plan for them, and we can't think of a better story than the life of Joseph. Week 1, we'll introduce the idea that God has a plan for me as we follow Joseph to Egypt, compliments of his older brothers. Joseph had to choose very early on in his life to trust that God had a plan for him. Week 2, Joseph finds himself sitting in jail for something he didn't do. I mean, talk about hard. But it's during this time that Joseph learned to trust God's plan even when it's hard. During week 3, we'll learn that we are all a part of God's plan when we hear how Joseph saved the grain, which in turn saved an entire nation from starvation. Now week 4 is a tough one, but oh so needed. We'll hear how Joseph forgave his brothers for all the hurtful things they had done long ago because he trusted that God's plan is always best. Imagine how much better the lives of our preschoolers and, well, all of us could be if we lived like God has a plan for us and that God's plan is always best. We would be the complete works of art that God created us to be.